Hello, welcome back to About Worm. Now, finally, I am going to get on to actually talking about fanfics that I would recommend and stuff in the community. But that is a rather exhaustive list, so it's going to be spread out over a few weeks. Today, I will be talking about notable authors, be it because of what they've written, the significance of what they've written, or how prolific they are. So, this is in alphabetical order. It's not in order of importance, and apologies if I've missed anybody. This isn't exhaustive by any measure. First up, we have Ack, who wrote Hope Comes to Brockton Bay and a lot of other pieces of fiction in this community, and has also helps manage a lot of the resources we have. Like one of the WhoAmEye resources threads I mentioned in a previous video is managed by them. They are also notable because most of the fics end up in a rather happy way. They are often declared to be fix, and if that makes you more inclined or less inclined to read his work, so be it. Beaconhill has written various small snippets and also rather some longer stories like Heredity and The Student. I would definitely recommend reading his work. I love The Student, and the writing is really nice, and he explores many interesting things in his snippets, most of which you can find on his Morning Worm thread. Biigoh, the creator of Goblin Queen, and Resident Tanuki. I will be going into Goblin Queen in a bit more detail coming up in a future video, but for now, just know that I recommend reading it. Cerulean, they're writing Atonement and Intrepid right now. These are two rather long-running fics he's managing to update every single day, give or take, alongside with his own web serial called Heretic Ledge. I would recommend the reading. It's a really nice subversion on a lot of tropes. There is always a twist you don't expect. Chibipoe, not as active as they used to be, along with a lot of the authors on this list, actually. Life happens. They wrote Acceleration, Firebird, and a few others, and they're pretty good works. They revolve mainly around Taylor, a few of them don't, but they are quite interesting. Strong powers, an even stronger characterization. Cyclone has written a lot of stories. Too many to list, really. DeviantD wrote Silencio and a few other things, but mainly Silencio is the thing we know them for. DoctorNobody has written a lot of ridiculous, cracky snippets. FixerUpper. FixerUpper has done a lot of interesting things, including a lot of quests, like Game On, the cross with the gamer, which is quite nice. And they also did, in a case of Apocalypse Breaks Glass, which is sort of a round robin where everyone sort of used their avatars and just threw them into the world and see what chaos happened, and it was an amazing thing while it lasted. Unfortunately, it didn't last that long, but that's the nature of the fandom, really. Gideon 020 or 020. They wrote a ton of the early action stories like Death's Head and Shy Gold. Rather incredibly good action. Rather gory though. Hotdog Vendor done a lot of various things, a lot of random snippets here and there, and few stories, including I think essentially a story based on the meme Who Was Phone. I think. Can't remember if that's right. And also, as I mentioned before, the Arms Master excuse generator. Kavin Vacit, I'm sorry, man. I probably mispronounce your name, but very prolific crack writer. Very good crack fix, not actual crack. Lavanya Six, he's written a lot of interesting snippets, has a very high caliber of writing, and is very good at exploring characterization and situations. Materia-Blade, very good at writing epics and things that feel like they should be epics, even though they're rather short. Materia is in the process of writing Copacetic and Dominion, two fics I would highly recommend. There's a few really nice one-shots I'll link some point in the future in another video. They're also writing their own web serial called Solar Towers, and I would recommend reading that. Narco-Duck wrote Jenny of the Dragonfly and some other things. I would definitely recommend reading that. Nekraa originated the helping administrator shard meme, so that's a nod to them. I'll link that in the description. Notes has written the Memorial series, which, as almost everyone knows in this fandom, is the uncontested sort of fan sequel to him. It's an alternative interpretation, and most people consider it just about on par with the original in terms of quality and content and everything, really. The writing's really good. There's a lot of subtlety. There's a lot of characterization. I would highly recommend it. I think this is on top of almost everybody's to-read list or top fix of all time. TanaNari's done Cryptekiel, which is an interesting crossover with Warhammer 40k, if I'm correct, and also various other snippets, and they're all pretty nice power ones. Overt Concerns has written various fics with interesting premises. This includes one with Taylor with Dauntless's powers, Taylor with Doormakers, and a lot of interesting stories. The action is always very nice. I like the writing, and I recommend this highly. Potato Nose. Potato Nose writes a lot of amazing epics. They are a very technical writer. They do a lot of scientific description, which I normally am not a big fan of. But they manage to pull it off in a way that doesn't seem like an exposition dump. And they make it very interesting, even for someone like me who only has a passing knowledge of what Foof is, or rods from God, or godalized numbers and stuff like that. Also notably, they've written the one choose your own adventure format story that I actually like. So I would definitely recommend checking out their work as well. I like it a lot, honestly. It's just that very cathartic release of everything going perfectly. And it's just awesome. QuantumWales, although he's not as involved in the community anymore, I'm pretty sure, used to be a very large beta in the community and was a very, very good writer. Even though a lot of his writing was relatively short for the fandom, 2,000 word parts and self-contained stories and that, they were really, really nice, and I honestly loved the way he wrote and the work he produced. It was amazing, and I would definitely recommend checking out his stuff as well. Ridtom. Okay, so Ridtom has done a lot of stuff. Ridtom wrote Reaper Them, which was a really nice crossover with the Stephen King universe, but rather short-lived, and has also contributed to a lot of the resources, including like feats and sources thread, and also the wiki. He's also done a few interesting quests, including the Helsing Formal Complaints quest, where it's Sarah's Victoria with Dauntless's ability to empower her equipment. Unfortunately, like most things in the Worm fandom, it died very, very quickly. Ryuugi is infamous in multiple fandoms for writing so much amazing stuff and then just dropping it like a hot potato and writing something else. In the Worm fandom, he is almost best known for Here Be Dragons and Zenith. I'll be talking about both Here Be Dragons and Zenith in the future. He's also done multiple really nice snippets, power swaps, character discussions, and other things, and I just really like his work. Samdamandias did a number of interesting snippets, including did what might have been, most notably a long one, which I found really sweet and really cathartic, even though it was rather short. Seclorum, another person who deals almost solely in crack fix, along with WhoAmEye, they do very good stuff, and I like their work. It's rather humorous. Serbil has been the origin of multiple memes in the Worm fandom, including the I am a dragon, you are now an Asian, and also a parody of the whole Sophia Predator talk, wherein there's a snippet where Sophia refers to Taylor as a hippo. Sorain has written a few stories, including Yklia and Fury and various snippets, and although I do not like some of their work, I would definitely recommend checking out their work. TanaNari is sort of a contentious figure in some parts of the fandom because he wrote Amelia, which Amelia is a very, very long work. He wrote Amelia at probably the second fastest rate in the entire fan. The writing, however, took a little bit for me to get used to because it wasn't honestly the best I've seen. But just the premise and the way he he fulfilled a lot of power fantasies and made a very cathartic story. But past a certain point, like around chapter 300, I think, yeah, he did update insanely fast. It just, I just couldn't read it anymore. It's technically still hosted at Space Battles, I think, but Amelia's been moved to questionable questing, so that's a heads up. I would definitely check out his stuff, and he also has a web serial called Price, I think, now. Finger Six done a lot of interesting things for the fandom, including Slaughterhouse 9 Taylor, The Weaver 9, Memoirs of a Swimmer thing, and other things that I would definitely recommend checking out. His writing is really nice, and his writing of Jack Slash in Weaver 9 and also Taylor is on par. I would love it. VereorNox wrote Spirit of Nature, Stopwatch, Through the Rabbit Hole, and various other things. I would highly recommend Spirit of Nature. It is an amazing piece of fiction, and I love it to death. Just wish it would update sooner. WhoAmEye, as I mentioned before, with Seclorum, is very good at crack fix, and does that quite well. I like their work as well. It's rather humorous. Yklia wrote Silent, and Yklia is a person who probably has the title of fastest writer in the entire fandom. They managed about 300,000 words in 3 days. You can tell they actually wrote it because the quality isn't absolutely polished, and the fact that they were responding to feedback through it, like, as the story went on. But it was an amazing story, and it was incredible, just the speed at which they wrote it, so I would definitely recommend checking out Yklia's stuff. Unfortunately, after the publishing of Silent, they've pretty much done nothing in the fandom, not even logged in once, and so that's a bit distressing. But that's the nature of the fandom, really. Finally, we have Yog. Yog was the person who originally started the Fix ideas and resources thread on space battles. Has done a few things here and there, but just seems to be rather busy these days, as it happens, yeah. So unfortunately, he's also not as active as he used to be. But yeah, I also need to mention, like, he was one of the original people in space battles to talk about Worm. And that is pretty much my list of notable authors. Next week, we'll probably go into more about the actual pieces of fiction themselves, but that is going to take an inordinate number of time into episodes, so I'll break it up and just have this as an intro episode. If you guys feel interested in any of the people mentioned, I'll link to their profiles and also some pieces of work I really loved that they made. See you next week.